And now it's time for Omaha Bound with your host, Nicholas White. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Omaha Bound. Me and Scottie Gange are here to do what we do every Friday. We're breaking down the top 25, talking about some huge matchups. We have a 4 vs 5 and a 1 vs 2 matchup we're going to talk about. And this week, Perfect Game released their mid-season awards. Scottie, how excited are you for this episode?
Dude, I'm excited. I think this weekend, I mean, every single weekend there's always great matchups, but and getting to talk, off air before the show, there's some great baseball going on this weekend, so it's going to be pretty fun to watch.
Bear with us. We're both running on about like 4 hours to 5 hours of sleep. We've been out here working, grinding, all that type of stuff. So
it's one of those weeks.
And one of those weeks.
Where everything's falling in place.
But we're here. We're going to break down the top 25. Quick note, there were 3 teams that dropped out of the top 25. That was Florida State, Oklahoma, and Illinois. Florida State, they went 1-3 on the week. They lost to Florida in their midweek. They dropped it 4-2, and then they lost 2 of 3 to Boston College. Not something you want to do. Illinois went 0-4. They lost to Indiana State and then got swept by Iowa. And then Oklahoma went 1-3. They lost to Oklahoma State and then dropped 2 of 3 to West Virginia. That is why they are on the outside looking in. Scottie, real quick, Florida State not in the top 25.
It's hard to see because, they started so strong. And Florida State, for the past several years, really always has been a prominent college baseball team, college baseball university of Florida State. And so they're dropping. They're as a team, they're in a massive slump. So hope to see, just for the sake of college baseball, hope to see them kind of pick it up, whether they're winning games or at least just figuring out a little more. But, yeah, that's kind of the surprise of the season for me, at least so far.
And another one of the teams that were the last 4 undefeated teams that dropped out of the top 25. Tennessee dropped out, I think, 2 weeks ago. Florida State dropped out. The other 2 are thriving. We're going to get to them here in a little bit. But we'll kick off the top 25, the newest edition. At number 25, we have TCU. They dropped a little bit. They dropped to number 19. At number 24, Oklahoma State. Number 23, Clemson. Number 22, Connecticut. And number 21, Florida. That looks more like a 25 to 21, except for Florida and Clemson.
Yep.
Both people turned it on. Clemson right now at 22-6, Florida at 20-10. But like we talked about last week, Florida has that ability to go into any stadium at any time and win the game. Like, they beat Florida State midweek. That was a huge one for them.
They're a team that, especially once it gets deeper into the season, the records don't really matter for them. If they can find their way into a regional, then they're going to be a hard team to play against.
Yeah, they have a series this week. I'm going to pull it up. I forget who they play. They play Ole Miss, so this is a very good chance for them to climb back into the top 15, if anything. Moving on, at number 20, we have UC Irvine, Coastal Carolina, Ole Miss, like we talked about. At number 17, Texas Tech, and number 16, North Carolina. Quick note about Texas Tech. They played a midweek series against the University of New Mexico. I know that because I still follow them. I went there in high school. They went 1-1 against them. They lost the second one, but just to see these two power hitting teams go at it was second to none.
Not to mention they're in the Final Four.
They are in the Final Four. You are correct. They're just having a great year. A lot of teams I've noticed in this top 25 are successful in softball, successful in basketball, and in women's basketball too. So the programs are just second to none right now.
Tip your cap to athletic directors. They're big schools.
Yeah,
making noise.
Another team that's in the Final Four is number 15, Auburn, in our top 25 countdown. At number 14, we have Arkansas. At 13, LSU. LSU making the jump to number 17. They had a huge week as they were able to kind of mess with Mississippi State. They took 2 of 3 from Mississippi State. They won 10-5 and 11-2. That helps playing at Alex Box Stadium. Playing at home against Mississippi State, that's always going to help you out. At number 12, Texas. Number 11, East Carolina. Scotty, talk about LSU a little bit. So we have 3 SEC teams, a Big 12, and then I forget what East Carolina is. I'm not going to lie. I think they're the American Conference.
Think so.
The SEC, how big was that for LSU to get that win against Mississippi State?
I mean, it was huge for the SEC, but mostly just for LSU. You know, there was a team, I think they were preseason ranked 2 or 1, up there in the top 3 for sure, and they dropped off. We spent a lot of the last week's episode kind of talking about their drop-off and the fact that they've been a tough team to watch, and the fact that they have so much raw talent, so many good pitchers, and they just weren't able to find a way to get wins. And so for them to go up against Mississippi State, a premier top team in the country, take 2 out of 3, it shows that, you know, teams slump. Baseball is a game full of slumping, and LSU, it shows that they can still ball and that they are still for real, although they've struggled for the beginning of half of the season.
And we talked about SEC schools, how week in and week out they're going to have to play top-tier talent, people that are going to go high in the MLB draft, people that are going to make runs to Omaha. It is very, very hard to stay perfect in SEC play. Most of these teams go into the tournament as like a 32-20 team or something like that, but they're the most potent team.
Yeah.
So that very, very good to see. Another thing I wanted to highlight was Arkansas dropped. Arkansas sitting in there at number 14. They were number 8 last week. Had a little mess up. They beat Missouri State 8-2. Missouri State was a team that went to a super regional a couple of years ago. They usually host a regional, not a very quality opponent.
Right.
But then they dropped 2 of 3 to Ole Miss. They won game 1 and then lost game 2 and game 3 by a score of 4-3 and then 10-5. You think Arkansas is going to be able to turn that back around? Obviously, they're still sitting there at 14. They're at 22-6 overall. You think they're going to be able to climb back in? Because honestly, I think Arkansas is a team that's going to go back to Omaha. They were in the finals last year. I think they have a very, very solid chance with their pitching and with their bats.
Yeah, Arkansas is a dark horse in college baseball. I mean, 22-6, that's a very, very quality upper tier record that they have right now. And for them, I mean, the 4-3 loss, think of that's just 1 or 2 hits away from winning that game and winning the series. So if they can find a way to get that extra guy in, tie it up, maybe go to extras, find a way to win that game, which they easily could have. You know, baseball is a game where it's 1 or 2 pitches can change the entire landscape of a 9-inning ball game. And so I think for that, if they're able to win that series, then we're talking about something completely different with just a few different pitches going on in that game. So Arkansas, it might be nice for them to be a little lower in the fact that they don't have such a target on them. And so I think, I really know that by the end of the season, they're going to be a team that's going to be playing their top baseball. They're going to be a team that's going to be hard to beat, and they're going to find their way in a regional. I don't have any doubts about that.
Yeah, they have a tough matchup this weekend as they're playing number 15 Auburn at Auburn. So look for that series. There's a couple big matchups. We're going to dig into that after we get out of the top 25. But for right now, we'll continue on. At number 10, Louisville. They moved up 1 slot. Number 9 is Texas A&M. They had a tie this week.
Yeah. We talked about what that could have been. Who knows? Maybe they had a 22-inning game where it was just tied, or maybe it rained in the 4th.
And they're like, let's go home. At number 8, the biggest drop-off was Mississippi State, losing those 2 games to LSU. They dropped from number 2 last week. They're number 8 this week. They're still sitting at 24-5. I still have them going to Omaha. At number 7, your Arizona State Sun Devils at 25-1. They lost their midweek though, so they're 25-2 now.
25-2 now.
They lost to Long Beach State, and then at number 6 we have Oregon State, and Oregon State is just they're on a roll right now. They come to Phoenix here in a little bit. They're at 19-5-1, another tie. How good is it to see those 2 Pac-12s still showing out?
Yeah, it's awesome, and you know, we're not even down to the bottom where we're going to see a couple more Pac-12 schools. But I'll tell you what, for next week, I think the majority of our conversation, of our episode, will be based around the Oregon State-Arizona State series. And I think it will be for, college baseball talk and shows like this across the country, because that's going to be the premier matchup for next weekend when the Beavers come to Tempe.
Yeah, it's going to be a huge matchup. Obviously, Adley Rushman and Hunter Bishop, both great players, both on this preseason awards list. We're going to dive into that. But they were able to sweep Washington at Washington this weekend, which, congratulations, you said that one. I said Washington was going to be able to pull it out. They weren't. And then they go to Utah. You think that they're going to get back-to-back sweeps?
Yeah, Utah's okay. They're nothing special. I think that's going to be an easy sweep for them. Oregon State is a whole nother league than Utah is in terms of baseball.
All right, so we're going to move on to the top 5. At number 5, we have Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's been playing excellent as of late. I'm going to check out what they did last week. They went 3-1. Their only loss was the Sunday game against Tennessee where they lost 7-6. So like you said, one swing, they sweep the week right there. And let's not lie, Tennessee was the other team that was undefeated for a very, very long time this year, that they dropped out eventually. But like we said, the SEC showing out, any team can beat anybody at any time. Tennessee is not even ranked right now, and they were able to take at least one game away from the number 16 or number 6 team in the nation. That's huge.
And that's the beauty of baseball, I think. In college basketball, college football, you have these teams like the Dukes and the Alabamas, in Duke in basketball, Alabama in football, where they're going to win, especially if they play an unranked team. So it almost doesn't really get that fun. But baseball is a sport where you can have a pitcher ball out and help you win a ball game, or you can just have a hot streak in hitting the baseball. And so that's why I think baseball is really fun, because it's always going to be a level of competition. Yes, there's some better teams than others, but there's always going to be at least a level playing field in the fact that baseball is one of those sports that it can go any way, anytime.
And that's one of the great things about baseball. You don't have to be 6'9" or 6'10" to be like the best guy on the court. You can be 5'5" and still be the best player on the field. Vanderbilt, though, will travel to number 4 Georgia, who's sitting there at 23-5. It's going to be a huge matchup. We're going to dive into that here in a little bit. At number 3 was the other team other than ASU that's still in the top 25 that went undefeated for a very long time, and that's NC State. They are 27-2. They moved up from number 5. And then at number 2, we have Stanford, and your number 1 still is going to be UCLA. And guess what? UCLA and Stanford play each other this weekend.
Love that.
It's going to be a great matchup between those two teams. We got 4 versus 5. We got 1 versus 2. And NC State is just kind of taking over the top 25. I mean, started out the season 17-20 ratio, or 17-20 ranking, depending on which one you looked at, but a team that really just shot up the boards and were able to win a bunch of games, and in an ACC nonetheless, with Clemson, with North Carolina, with a bunch of other schools that can really get it done. But do you think UCLA is going to be able to stay on top for a long time?
Yeah, I think, we talked about this before in the UCLA-Stanford series. I find UCLA a far better team. Stanford's great. They're number 2 in the country.
Yes.
I mean, they're great. I'm not going to go out here saying that they're a bad team, but UCLA is kind of another tier, and I see it kind of being a coming out party for the Bruins this weekend.
Absolutely. I think it's going to be a great weekend for them to stay dominance in the NCAA. What about this Georgia Vanderbilt? We're gonna jump into it a little bit more, but who do you think will take that series real quick?
I've always been just a fan of Vanderbilt, not in the fact that I want them to win. I've just been a fan of the way that they play, and the fact that they have continued of the highest level of excellence for a long time in their baseball program. The records are pretty much the exact same right now. The matchup is pretty much the exact same, but when it comes down to, you have 2 very even teams, and Vanderbilt is in the game, I'm gonna go for Vanderbilt.
Yeah, the series is sold out. As they're playing it in Athens, Georgia. But that is your top 25. One thing they did before we break down these 2 matchups again is the perfect game mid-season awards. I'm not going to lie. I think the mid-season awards is kind of overrated. Celebrate the players that are playing good, but Tracy Smith said it on Twitter. He was like, cool, now on to the second half of the season.
Right.
He knows that the mid-season awards kind of...
It's cool.
It's cool, especially by something as well known as perfect game, to be honored as that. But we're going to break down some of the awards, some of the first team, perfect game first team, All-American, and everything like that. And Scotty, who is the mid-season player of the year right now?
I think his name is Hunter something.
Yeah, Hunter. I don't know. He absolutely rakes from the left-handed batter's box. Hunter Bishop out of Arizona State. Obviously, we can go to Arizona State, so that is great to see. He has been absolutely tearing the cover off the ball. Him and the rest of the Arizona State lineup.
Really everybody.
They're putting up, I think, averaging 6 runs a game right now.
Yeah.
The only reason they let that one slip to Long Beach State was just peppering the runs in too.
They were, and ASU. It was a day off for ASU. They pitched all their freshmen that hadn't really pitched at all, and they rested some guys. That was just kind of a throwaway game, and everybody has that, and so it's kind of an understandable game where it's just like, it was almost more on the lines of a scrimmage.
Yeah, absolutely. And then pitcher of the year, Reed Detmers from Louisville. Freshman of the year, JT Ginn, right-handed pitcher out of Mississippi State. Right now, the coach of the year is John Savage from UCLA. I think there was a different one that had Tracy Smith in it.
Yeah,
I think that was Division
Tracy
I baseball
Smith.
or D1 baseball.
I think you might be right about that because Tracy did, as you said, he put on Twitter and all that, and he was ranked in some way the coach of the year. So it must have been D1 baseball because those are really the only two that I think do that in D1 baseball. And Perfect Game, like we said, and Hunter Bishop was the player of the year in both of those.
Both, yeah.
So,
Yeah, because the top freshman for D1 baseball was Davis Sharp from Clemson, the right-handed pitcher from there. And then let's see, top coaches. Yep, they had Elliott Event from NC State, and then Tracy Smith from Arizona State.
that
Obviously,
seems like
both
the
of
right
them.
pick to me for both of them together, and the fact that they've both had programs that weren't really seen at the beginning of the year to now number 3 and number 5 or 7, however, whatever website you're ranking ASU. So that seems correct.
Yeah, and it says here neither team entered this season in the top 25 on Division I baseball. Now NC State's at number 3 and ASU's at number 7. I think they're a little bit higher in a couple other rankings. They're as high as number 5.
The USA Today coaches poll, they're number 5.
Yeah, so for both teams, combined losses of 4 and when they didn't even start in the rankings, very, very much deserving. Nothing to take away from John Savage, who's at UCLA and what they've done. Obviously, they're having an incredible year, but just to collect these midseason awards, we'll talk about the first team All-American. A lot of names that we talked about in the very first episode.
Yeah.
About possible top draft picks.
They're all playing up to it. Which is great to see,
Exactly, and I couldn't have said it any better. Catcher Ali Rushman hitting .410 out of Oregon State. A lot of people have him as the number 1 pick. Switch hitting catcher. Obviously can hit for power. He has 9 home runs right now. 3 doubles, 22 hits. The dude can absolutely swing it from both sides of the plate. First base is going to be Andrew Vaughn, and what can you say about him? He's just basically showing out exactly. Yeah. He picked up where he left off last season.
Yeah, he had such an amazing season last year, and the only thing that overshadowed his phenomenal year was Spencer Torkelson's phenomenal year, and Vaughn is kind of winning in that aspect this year and just continuing the immaculate, ridiculous play at the plate, and he's brought it from last year to this year.
Yeah, and it seems like he's kind of getting overshadowed again in the Pac-12 by Hunter Bishop.
Yeah.
ASU somehow is able to put a player that can just overshadow someone who's having an amazing season. And Andrew Vaughn, obviously Golden Spikes winner, has a chance to come back and do it again.
Right.
But he's got some other people on this list that are fighting for him with that as well. At second base, they have Nick Gonzalez from New Mexico State. He has the highest batting average right now at .483.
And I don't get that.
I don't get that. That's amazing. He has 56 hits already on the year. Nobody on this list.
Yeah, it's not like he's like 18 for 36 or something like that. He's got 56 hits, which means he's played just about every game. He has more hits than anybody else.
With nine doubles, 11 home runs, 51 RBIs already, and 4 stolen bases. The dude can flat out absolutely rake. A little bit like Nick Madrigal did last year with Oregon State.
Right.
And in his hitting and his approach and everything like that, Nick Madrigal played second as well. At third base from Tulane, Cody Hose, he's batting .374. He has 12 home runs right now, 31 RBIs. Shortstop from NC State, Will Wilson, he's hitting .333. He's got 35 RBIs on the year, 8 home runs. And then Hunter Bishop, obviously, hitting .424. His slugging is 1.040. There is nobody else on the list that has cracked 900. The dude has 16 home runs, 42 hits, 2 triples, and 9 doubles with 10 stolen bases.
Ridiculous.
I mean, I'm really interested to see what he does when they play UCLA in a couple weeks, and like you said, when they play Oregon State in a couple weeks. Once he starts facing these top tier hitters, it's gonna be some great matchups.
Yeah, he's so fun. He's so fun to watch because last year, I covered the team and he was good. He wasn't like amazing. He was just one of the better guys on ASU on a pretty bad ASU team last year. And look at him now, be midseason player of the year, 16 home runs, and the best by far slugging percentage in the country.
Oh, absolutely. Another outfielder is going to be J.J. Blade from Vanderbilt. We talked about him a lot at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
He's hitting .355. He's got 11 home runs, 34 RBI, slugging .702. Then we have Jake Magnum. And Jake Magnum, this name has been around college baseball for what seems like forever. I had my buddy Tyler Crawford on here. He played against him. He's collected 53 hits. He's hitting .398 in an SEC. That's very hard to hit that high. If you hit .400 in the SEC, you're going day one of the MLB draft.
Mm-hmm.
And then for the DH, we have Jake Sanford from Western Kentucky. He's hitting .381 on the year, 42 RBIs, 14 home runs. And then utility is going to be Alec Burleson from East Carolina. He is hitting .420. He's got 21 RBIs on the year, 4 home runs. And the pitchers, we're going to highlight a few of them because a few of them are in the Pac-12. And Alec Marsh, who is posting one of the lowest ERAs and is one of the only people on this list that's undefeated, other than Braden Isart from Oregon State, who we're going to talk about a little bit too. But Alec Marsh, the Friday night guy, the go-to guy for ASU, you've seen him pitch.
Yeah.
What do you like from him that he's been able to keep hitters off balance?
I mean, I just love the maturity of Alec Marsh. You know, ASU is not a team that's known for their pitching, and Alec Marsh has earned that in the first half of the season. And just the fact that he isn't going to blow you away with his fastball, he doesn't have a plus curveball or anything like that. He's just a guy that is a smart pitcher. He's a mature pitcher. He doesn't really let anything rattle him. So we've seen that really all season long. And so he's just the guy that kind of has won the mind game in every single at-bat this year that he's pitched.
Yeah, and then, like we said, Braden Isart, a .30 ERA. He's 6-0. 44 strikeouts on the year.
Insane.
He's just an absolute dude on the mound, and that's what I'm looking forward to on that Friday night matchup when Oregon State comes down to Phoenix Municipal Stadium to take on Arizona State. It's going to be a great matchup. Those two teams and those two pitchers going head-to-head. It's really going to be who's going to crack first,
right?
Because both teams can absolutely swing it as well. One person I want to highlight is he's on both lists. That Alec Burleson from East Carolina. He's hitting .420. He's on the All-American list for position players, and then he's also on it for pitchers. He's posting a 2.96 ERA. He's 2-0, 32 strikeouts. Opponent batting average is just .230.
Did they give him that because he's a positional player too? Is that kind of just throw him a bone onto the pitching also?
I don't know. He's thrown 27 innings. They got Matt Cronin from Arkansas has only thrown 12, and he made the list.
Huh.
But
Weird.
Alec has great stuff. 2.96 ERA, you know, that can go anywhere. It's really hard. East Carolina, the ball typically flies a little bit there. They've always had teams that rake. But I think that's to hit .420 and post an ERA like that with 2-0, you're undefeated on the year. Granted, I know it's only 2 games, but to throw 27 innings,
right,
32 strikeouts, only 9 walks, I'll definitely take that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we're going to jump into the matchups. We're going to start off with the number 4 Bulldogs as they face off against the number 5 Vanderbilt Commodores. They're sold out in Athens, Georgia. And this is kind of the biggest series since the 2015 season, when, again, Vanderbilt went to Georgia. What do you expect to happen? Is there going to be fireworks, or do you think this is going to be more of a pitching matchup?
I see it as more of just great baseball. You know, it's not going to be a 16-17 ASU U of A game that we saw on Sunday. I think it's this when you want to watch a quality, top-tier college baseball, this is going to be a great series to watch because I think every single level, you know, both teams are such great at hitting, but they also have great pitchers, great fielders, and they're all smart. You know, there's not going to be many mistakes in this weekend series, so it's going to be fun to watch and just extremely clean baseball. At least that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, I completely agree. Obviously, we talked about the Bulldogs. They're off to their best start since 2009 when they were 25-5. They swept South Carolina in the SEC. They took 2 of 3 from LSU, who was ranked number 10 at the time, and they took 2 of 3 from Kentucky. They allow the fewest hits per 9 innings at 6, and they're playing at home.
Yeah.
That's tough. That's tough to beat. If there is a team that's going to beat them, I do think it's Vanderbilt because they know how to go on the road in the SEC. They do it week in and week out, and they've proved time and time again that they can do it. Some pitching matchups for Georgia: Emerson Hancock, 6-1, a .98 ERA. He was, I think, in the midseason awards as well against Drake Fellows, who's 6-0 with a 3.59 ERA. He's a junior. On Saturday night, it's going to be C.J. Smith, a lefty from Georgia, against Patrick Raby. Patrick Raby, if you don't know his name, he's been on the team for a little bit. He's a senior. He has the demeanor. He knows how to get wins. He was a team member on that 2015 team. He was very, very young. He didn't do a whole lot on that team, but he was able to pitch.
And he was there for the culture and recognize all of that as well.
And props to him for staying until his senior year.
Yeah.
He was there. He felt that pain of that loss, and he's a really big key on why they want to get back to Omaha so bad.
Mm-hmm.
On Sunday, we have Tony Losi, who's 4-0, the junior right-handed pitcher for Georgia, against Kumar Rocker, who's 2-3 with a 6 ERA. He's a freshman. You think that's a good idea as they're trying to go on the road right now, throwing a freshman with a 6 ERA?
No. But, I mean, it's going to be fun to watch, and if it's good to see that they at least have that amount of trust in him. And ERA is a tough thing to see because, you could get earned runs, and they really weren't supposed to be earned runs, something like that. It's a tough thing to really manage. But throwing a freshman on a Sunday game, especially if it could be the rubber match, will be difficult.
Yeah, and look for the Commodores to get on early as they have one of the best lineups in the SEC, and they have a leadoff hitter, Austin Martin, who's hitting .449 right now, absolutely destroying it, as well as we said, J.J. Blade, who's hitting .353. Going to be a great matchup down there. If you're in Athens or around Athens, check it out. It's going to be on TV. It's going to be on the SEC network for a few games, so tune into that, check it out. This is going to be a huge factor, a huge kind of mid-season test for both teams. And now we're going to jump into kind of a topic that I think I really wanted to talk about. I was super excited about it because other than next week's matchup.
I can see it right now.
Yeah, other than next week's matchup with Arizona State and Oregon State, this is one I circled, and especially it's kind of grown as the season has continued, and that is Stanford against UCLA. Number 1 pitted against number 2, and this is the first time that Stanford has hosted a number 1 team since I think like 2000 since 2000 when they swept Cal State Fullerton at home, who was number 2 at the time.
There's so much at stake for this series, and the fact that Pac-12, of course, they're in the same conference, but it turns into, from conference, it turns into a national series, and it turns into maybe a preview of perhaps a College World Series, and the fact that both of these teams are the best 2 teams in the country, ranked that in just about every single ranking, and number 1 and number 2, and it's fun to see, and they've been playing together and against each other for so many years, and now this one just comes down to so much at stake for this upcoming weekend. I can't wait.
Yeah, it's going to be a great matchup. Like we said, it's been a while since it's been a 1 versus 2 in the Pac-12. But one thing I don't really think is going to be that big a deal is I think Stanford's going to get beat, and I think it's not going to be pretty. I don't think they're going to get blown out by any means because, as we've known, as we talked about before, UCLA doesn't put up a lot of runs. Mm-hmm. When they do, it's kind of like, all right, we're hot. Let's just continue the bass rolling. But Stanford, they're ranked number 2. They're one of like 4 teams in the top 25 that haven't hit 20 wins yet. They haven't really played a lot of games. Yeah. Their toughest matchup was against Texas, which I'm going to give them that one. They took 3 of 4 from Texas. But they also played at home. Do you think playing at home is going to be the biggest factor on their possibility of taking this series?
I do, but I also really don't see it because Stanford's, it's always nice to play at home wherever you're playing, whether you're playing in the Sandlot or at the biggest stadium in the world at Yankee Stadium or something like that. But Stanford's not really a rowdy place. It's not the hardest place to play baseball, and so for Oregon State, the trip isn't all that hard, but it's just going to be more convenient for Stanford, I'd say. Yeah,
playing at home in front of your own fans is always easy, but
right.
I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to say that UCLA is able to take the series in a sweep.
Mm-hmm. I flubbed up. I said Oregon State. I meant UCLA. We know
that. Yeah. I'm going to look up their schedule. Like we said, they're 19-3, so if they get 1 win, they're going to crack in. They did take 2 of 3 from Fullerton. This is Stanford. 2 of 3 from Fullerton when Fullerton was ranked number 24 in the country. But then they've played Utah, and they played Washington State, and then they played Fresno State.
Yeah, they've been playing poor opponents. It's always hard to play down and then kind of have to come back up and play the number 1 team in the country. That's pretty difficult.
And shout out to UCLA. UCLA having a year right now. Yeah. They have the number 1 softball team and the number 1 baseball team right now, which is very hard to do. And especially the men's baseball team, 21-5, and their softball team is 35-1.
Dude, I'm telling you, their softball team is so good. We should have totally just gone for full UCLA softball show today.
We should.
We're students at Arizona State, and we're gonna have a UCLA softball podcast.
Hey,
we love them that much.
We do. UCLA, a great school. UCLA has already taken 2 of 3 from Oregon State in a very, very early on matchup. That was huge for them. They won 8-0, lost 3-7, and then won 9-7. They swept Arizona, took 2 of 3 from USC, and then they play Stanford. And then after that, they are also going to have to play East Carolina.
And UC Irvine.
And
UC
UC
Irvine,
Irvine.
top 15 team. They play them on a Tuesday. Just saw how bad ASU played against a 3-23 team on a Tuesday after playing Arizona.
Exactly.
Tuesday games are hard.
And then they will come to ASU May 3rd, 4th, and 5th. But I think UCLA has the advantage by playing these tough games early. And if you can take at least 2 of 3 from Stanford right now, you kind of cement yourself in the top 5. Pending a really, really crappy week where you drop 6 of 7 or whatever have you. But the fact that they're going to play Stanford still, they're going to play East Carolina, UC Irvine in a midweek series, like you said.
Yeah.
They have a chance to just cement themselves in the number 1 ranking.
They totally do. And you're right when you say that. And something I'll say I want to kind of put out there before as we're kind of in the back few moments of the show is taking a look at this upcoming series and really their game against UC Irvine too for UCLA is they have a phenomenal opportunity to make the Pac-12 look really good. And if you're a fan of the Pac-12, you are really hoping for 3 great competitive games between UCLA and Stanford, where at the end of it you go, wow, I really don't even know who's better. They're both awesome. I could give them both the number one overall, because if UCLA runs through Stanford, then UCLA separates themselves from the Pac-12. They're just UCLA, and Stanford is that Pac-12 team that, hey, I think the Pac-12 might be overrated. Look at Stanford. I mean, they just got smacked.
Yeah, exactly. And 4 teams right now in the top 7. I think it's even the top 6 in some rankings. So the Pac-12 is showing out after a couple seasons where they haven't really done that well. It's kind of been Oregon State and the rest of the group.
Right.
And we talked about how Washington made a run. There's teams that can make a run, but I completely agree. UCLA has that chance to be that Oregon. It's UCLA and the rest.
Right.
They've already beat Oregon State. They have a chance to do it again, and then when they play Arizona State, they have a chance to even push that farther away. But they
and their schedule works out that way, to where they played Oregon State. They actually had some time in between. They've got Stanford now, and that's all their energy here. UC Irvine on a Tuesday is going to be tough. Who knows? Maybe they can get through that and throw one of their freshmen. He has a good game, but then it goes to Arizona State, and they have a few more weeks in between there. So they have a great breakup in between all their big-time series, the 3 biggest series of the season. They have enough time in between all of those to prepare and get the right amount of rest and be perfectly ready to go for them.
Exactly. I'm glad you said that. Breaking it down right now, obviously UCLA, if it were to be in the field of 64, if they were to go in the tournament right now, UCLA would be the number 1 overall seed. Oregon State would also have a number 1 seed. Stanford would also have a number 1 seed. ASU would also have a number 1 seed. So a lot of teams, the Pac-12.
Is Cal in there with the 1 seed too?
There's going to be more. I feel like if there's going to be a Pac-12 team, I'm not quite sure who it's going to be, but I feel like there's going to be a Pac-12 team. Maybe U of A if they can figure it out. That can climb into like a number 3 seed or a number 4 seed and make a nice little run.
We saw it from Washington last year.
Exactly. We saw it from Washington. A team that, all you got to do is get hot early. Oregon's right now a 3 seed, so look for the Pac-12 to continue to grow and continue to gain momentum. I can't find the A for Omaha this week, but it definitely had ASU in the A for Omaha this week. Obviously, they had Florida State dropping out. Florida is right on the cusp of that. But obviously, other than the A, they've kind of stayed the same. Has your A for Omaha stayed the same? I know mine has.
Yeah,
we both threw
think
ASU in there
has.
last week.
Yeah, I think it has. We kind of switched up 1 or 2 teams, but I'm still solid on my A.
Oh yeah, here we go. Here, found it. I know this is the A for the week. Well, hey, I mean, there's that too.
That's something we'll break down a little more next week then.
Yeah, we'll break down a little more next week. So, yeah, don't forget, guys, tune in next week. Arizona State plays in Phoenix against Oregon State. Has a very, very high possibility to be a top 20 or top 5 matchup. So stay tuned for that. We're going to preview that. We're going to talk about different key players to that, coaching, everything like that. We're also going to break down how this number 4, number 5 matchup happened and how this number 1, number 2 matchup happened. It's going to be a fun week next week. I'm very, very excited. A lot of big things happening in college baseball, so stay tuned. Don't forget, every week, every Friday, Omaha Bound, you listen right here, and we'll give you the stats. Have a good day. Have a good weekend, actually, guys.
All right.